Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Rundown. I will be your host today, Craig DeLuz, coming at you from the West Coast, the left coast, behind the Iron Curtain, otherwise known as the Sierra. And today, well, today is Hump Day.
Uh-oh. Mike. What day is it, Mike?
It's Hump Day.
Hump Day!
It's Hump Day.
Hump Day!
That's right, folks. Today is Hump Day. This is the day in which we attempt to begin the weekend, sometimes with success, sometimes not. But as I like to say, the fun, she's all in the trying. Oh, cheers, I got a drink. All right, let's get into today's program. Just going to be us today. Mike has been called out once again, but, you know, we always have fun together. So what's the big old deal? Anyway, let's start the day like we usually do. There's a lot of news, and I'll tell you, I know you probably want to talk about what happened in Virginia, the election there. Well, real quick, before we get into the news, the stuff we're actually going to talk about. Yes, they voted to, basically to drastically gerrymander Virginia. We'll talk a little bit more about it tomorrow, but it's being held up now in court. And we'll talk about that topic tomorrow. Because today we got some serious stuff that we need to talk about. Before we do that, we're going to go ahead and give a quick shout out to our sponsors. We're going to start with the folks at Hitman Industries. They make rifle and pistol caliber barrels available for you to purchase at any length. Just go to hitmanindustries.net. Then we've got the California Republican Assembly, once referred to by President Reagan as the conscience of the Republican Party. Find out why by visiting them at cragop.org. And then we've got the best in concealed carry tactical holsters available at Hog Holsters. That's HAWG Holsters, because they like helping Americans wear guns. And then finally, you have the place where you can find all things tactical except the gun, and that would be at uscombatgear.com. Now, they specialize in group sales, so if you're the purchasing agent for your club, for your department, for your business, you need to go check them out today. They have huge selection. They have competitive prices, especially in group sales, and the best customer service you will find out there. Visit them today, uscombatgear.com. Also, I want to remind you, if you are watching this program 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, then you are watching us live, which means we're taking your comments. We would love to hear what you have to say. We'd love to hear what you think about the program. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the particular topic. Now, the best way to get your comments read is if you disagree with us, because, well, that gives us an opportunity to mock you.
Oh, wow, is that a mockingbird?
Man, is that a mockingbird? Is that a mockingbird?
That's right. As Mike would say, we will mock you. Because it's fun, particularly for me. Yeah, mock you. Anyway, let's go ahead and get into today's topics. And we're going to start with the Southern Poverty Law Center. They have been charged with, let's just put it this way. For those of you who do not know about the Southern Poverty Law Center, it is an organization that's been around since 1971. It's an organization that supposedly is supposed to be about fighting for civil rights and promoting to end racism, extremism, and hate. And all they do is promote racism, extremism, and hate, apparently. Now, we always knew that they were that they were always good at taking anybody who was remotely conservative and accusing them of being a racist or a hate group or a purveyor of hate. Companies, governments actually use their list. Use the data and the information that they give them to determine who is guilty of hate and who is not, which has affected people's businesses, which has affected their livelihood, yada, yada, yada. Well, it turns out that, they're using some of the money that they've been receiving to actually promote hate. In other words, to gin up hate so that they can, turn around and they can raise money on it. Here's the announcement by the folks over at the Department of Justice. It's a press conference that they did talking about, it's a part of the press conference that they did talking about exactly what the Southern Poverty Law Center is being accused of.
What we're here today is to announce what the general just told you. The Southern Poverty Law Center, in a massive sweeping indictment, has been charged with allegations of fraud and using the banking system to perpetrate that fraud. I just want to talk about a couple of brief things here. The Southern Poverty Law Center themselves advertise to raise money to dismantle violent extremist groups for a period of at least a decade. They use their donor network to raise money to purportedly dismantle violent extremist groups. However, the SPLC, the Southern Poverty Law Center, used the money they raised from their donor network to actually pay the leadership of these very groups. I just want to say that again. They used the fraudulently raised money by lying to their donor network, thousands of Americans, to go ahead and actually pay the leadership of these supposed violent extremist groups. The groups, as the general laid out, include the Ku Klux Klan, the United Klans of America, Unite to Right, National Alliance, the National Socialist Movement, the Aryan Nation Motorcycle Club, and the National Socialist Party of America, and also the American Front. In at least one of these matters, our investigation revealed that funds were used to facilitate the commission of further state and federal offenses, totaling over $3 million. Furthermore, our investigation revealed that the Southern Poverty Law Center, on top of perpetuating this widespread, decade-long, multi-million-dollar fraud, conducted more criminal activity. They attempted to hide their criminal activity from our financial banking network. They set up shell companies and entities around America so that the financial institutions that we rely on as everyday Americans were deceived in believing that money was not coming from the Southern Poverty Law Center in the perpetration of this scheme and fraud, but rather fictitious entities they stood up to perpetuate this ongoing fraud. This is a serious and egregious violation of a group that purported to dismantle violent extremist groups, but in turn actually only fueled the hatred. This is an important case brought by President Trump's administration. We're thankful for the president for his leadership and funding of not just the FBI and DOJ, but his commitment to go out there and wipe out fraud and conspiracy and waste and abuse wherever it occurs, including the Southern Poverty Law Center. Even though this money was made to appear to be coming from legitimate people and legitimate entities, we at the FBI, with our great partners at the Department of Justice and in the state of Alabama, were able to comb through a decade worth of material, a scheme that took a decade to build, so that we were able to follow the money, because money never lies, and they got caught. As the Attorney General said, these charges are varying, they are widespread and wide-ranging, and this investigation is very much ongoing. Today, we're here to announce the charges of the Southern Poverty Law Center, and this investigation and the individuals who are responsible will be brought to justice. Thank you, General.
Okay, so this is a report coming out of CNBC saying DOJ charges Southern Poverty Law Center with fraud over secret funding of extremist groups. Let's talk a little bit about it here. It says the Department of Justice on Tuesday announced a bombshell 11-count fraud indictment accusing the Southern Poverty Law Center of secretly funding leaders and organizations of white supremacist, racist, and other hate groups that the civil rights group claimed to be battling. The SPLC's paid informant, field source, otherwise referred to as field sources, engaged in the active promotion of racist groups at the same time that the SPLC was denouncing the same groups on its website, alleges the indictment returned by a grand jury in the U.S. District Court of Montgomery, Alabama on Tuesday. The SPLC, which is a nonprofit civil rights organization, is charged with 6 counts of fraud and 4 counts of bank fraud and 1 count of money laundering. Between 2014 and 2023, the SPLC paid at least $3 million to 8 individuals, some of whom were associated with the Ku Klux Klan, the United Klans of America, the National Socialist Party of America, those are the Nazis, and the Aryan Nations affiliated sadistic Souls Motorcycle Club and the American Front, said acting U.S. Attorney General Todd Blanche at a press conference. Quote, the SPLC was not dismantling groups, said Blanche, as FBI Director Kash Patel stood at his side. Quote, It was instead manufacturing the extremism it purports to oppose by paying these individuals to stoke hatred. Now, let's be clear. Even though what they did, this funding of the racist groups is horrid, it is bad, but that's not the crimes they are being charged with. What they're being charged with is lying about it. When I say lying about it, here's what they did. They created shell companies. They created several shell companies in several parts of the country. They made the companies seem legitimate. So when they were paying money to the companies, when one company would send the money to another company, it would send the money to another company. That would then in turn create cards, prepaid credit cards, basically cash cards, and then give it to these individuals. That's how they were paying them. Now, the interesting thing is that none of the data, none of the information that they were supposedly gathering or garnering from these individuals, none of it was ever made public. It was never a part of anything or any project that they publicly did. So there's no, one has to wonder, how is it that they were quote unquote dismantling them if they were simply funding the leaders? And by the way, these leaders were engaged in, these people were, many of them were in parts of leadership. One of them was part of the leadership group that put together the Unite the Right rally. You remember the one where Donald Trump was accused of saying there are very fine people on both sides? He was talking about the debate over whether or not the Robert E. Lee statue should be removed. But they, the ones the media lied about, that's the one where the guy drove his car into the crowd of protesters and one person was killed. Yeah, basically the Southern Poverty Law Center basically they've probably raised millions upon millions of dollars from that particular event. And one of their paid informants was a part of the planning of this event. Right? You got the Ku Klux Klan. You have basically the Nazi Party, right? That's what the National Socialist Party. Yeah, those are Nazis. Because believe it or not, you guys may not know this. That's what the Nazi Party actually was. It was the National Socialist Party in Germany. Yeah, that's what the German Nazis were. Anyway, and once again, these are folks who list folks like organizations like Turning Point USA, right? CPAC. They accuse folks like Dennis Prager of someone who's Jewish of being a purveyor of hate. Charlie Kirk, someone of being a purveyor of hate. Basically, like I said, if you are remotely conservative, then in their eyes you are racist and you are hate, and you wind up on their list. So, they've done more to stoke hate, and what they do is that because there are organizations like these organizations that they fund, what winds up happening is they fund these groups. These groups go out and are visible, right? It helps those groups elevate their stature or their visibility in public, and then they raise money saying, "Look, there are racists out there." And if you happen to be conservative, you get confused. You get accused of being a Klansman. Yes, I have been accused of being a racist. Go figure. Let me get my hand. Yeah, go figure. Anyway, this is a group that is getting its comeuppance. Now, do I believe it was their intention to send them out there to stoke hate? I don't know. I just know that they were giving money to people who were in some cases in leadership positions in hate groups, and at least in one case, they were actually organizing hate and actually actively promoting. According to Kash Patel and according to the FBI, according to the indictment, they were actually engaged in criminal hate activities. So anyway, we shall see exactly where this winds up going. I believe that they're going to wind up in a whole bunch of trouble. I believe you're going to start to see some indictments, not just for the organization, but I think you're going to start to see some indictments for individuals who work for the organization. That's going to start to come out too, because organizations don't just do this stuff by themselves, right? The money, the check didn't write itself. The check didn't write itself. And so some folks there in the Southern Poverty Law Center, they got explaining to do. Anyway, I see that Ryan. I see Ryan is back with us. How are you doing with American Crossfire? Thank you so much for tuning in. Very much appreciate you tuning in. All right, let's move on to our next story here. What do we got here? Speaking of hate, Ilhan Omar. Ilhan Omar. Well, now it appears that Ms. Omar, well, it appears she is going to be facing some. She could potentially be facing some charges as a committee there in Minnesota is basically implicating her and saying that she may have had something to do with. She may have been actually involved. I don't know if they mean directly or indirectly in the $9+ billion in scams that have taken place there in Minnesota. Here, according to the Washington Examiner, Minnesota Fraud Committee suspects Ilhan Omar of involvement in Feeding Our Future scheme. Minnesota State Oversight Committee members accused Representative Ilhan Omar on Tuesday of playing a part in the Feeding Our Future scheme that stole more than $250 million from a federally funded child nutrition program. At a Minnesota House fraud hearing, members of the GOP-led Minnesota House Fraud Prevention and State Agency Oversight Policy Committee pointed to Omar's sponsorship of a bill that drastically relaxed eligibility requirements for food distributors to be able to receive reimbursements through the meal delivery program. In 2020, Omar introduced Maintaining Essential Access to Lunch for Students Act, which granted waivers allowing non-school-based distributors to participate in the program and claim compensation for costs of meals supposedly served. The Meals Act loosened the guardrails on federal nutrition program that led to the scandal we now call Feeding Our Future, said Minnesota State Representative Kristen Robbins, the committee's Republican chairwoman. Omar's legislation was meant to guarantee that economically disadvantaged children could rely on free discounted school lunches, still got fed while schools were shut down during COVID-19 crisis. In what became known as the largest ever pandemic-era scam, officials say Feed Our Future, a nonprofit organization, exploited the program's expanded enrollment provisions by establishing dozens of shell companies across Minnesota and enrolling them as distribution sites. Feed Our Family's fraud ring raked in millions of dollars in child nutrition money, though many of the purported meal providers, primarily supported by Somali immigrants, never actually fed any children. And once again, it's suspected that she's the one who carried the legislation that made this possible, right? When they removed the restrictions. I'm curious if, let's just put it this way. The woman went from being an immigrant coming here with nothing to being worth millions of dollars, and she doesn't make that much money. She didn't make that much money in the state legislature, and she makes decent money in Congress, but not enough to be worth some $30 million. One has to wonder exactly where that money was coming from. In any case, it's nice to see her get her comeuppance. She's gonna have to deal with this. And once again, this is a state committee. Now, granted, it does appear to be majority Republican, which is, I'm curious, how do you have a committee in Minnesota? I mean, as not as purple state, but as blue a state as you can get. How do you have a committee that's primarily Republican? I don't know, unless Democrats are just refusing to participate in going after her. But this is going to be crazy. I'm really hoping she is brought up on charges and summarily charged, arrested, put in jail, and following her jail sentence, removed from the country. We'd be very, very happy. I mean, she'd be happy anyway. She doesn't love it. She doesn't like it here anyway. I mean, we're one of the worst places on earth, according to her. So giving her a free ride home. She'd probably be very, very happy with that free ride home. So let's oblige. I don't know. Although, what do you guys think? You think we should even bother putting her in jail? Maybe just kick her out of the country? I don't know. What do you think? Let me know. Go ahead and let me know in the comments. What do you think? What do you think? You think throw her in jail and then kick her out when she gets out of jail, or don't bother paying money to don't bother paying money to to feed her and everything. Just kick her out of the country. I don't know. What do you guys think? I'm open. I'm open to whatever y'all think. Anyway, moving right along, by the way, talking about fraudsters, let's talk about Gavin Newsom. And I had a hard time deciding which one of the two stories, because there were a couple of different stories, one on fraud, and then this one, which is also fraud. But I couldn't decide, because I didn't want to do too many stories from California, but this one's pretty bad. So I wanted to make sure that I covered this one. Now, this is in a piece over at Breitbart. And it basically says, Gavin Newsom spent $1 billion to import 400,000 extra illegal immigrants. California Governor Gavin Newsom covertly spent $1 billion importing 400,000 migrants from poor countries to serve the state's democratic political machine and elite-dominated economy, according to data provided by the Manhattan Institute in New York. Quote, since Newsom took office, California has granted massive contracts for migrant-related services, more than $250 million to Catholic charities, $85 million to Jewish Family Services, $12 million to Centro Legal de la Raza, $23 million to the Immigration Institute of the Bay Area, and more, according to an article by Christopher Rufo in City Journal. The funding is in addition to California's share of the massive federal funding directed by President Joe Biden's pro-migrant border chief, Alejandro Mayorkas. You know, the one who kept saying the border is secure. Yeah. The state's government also steered $110 million to the major Latino political machine, Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights, Los Angeles, or CHIRLA. What else? Yeah. So anyway, we spent a lot of money paying for immigrants. And by the way, this doesn't even include money that was spent on homelessness. And a lot of people don't realize that over 47% of the beds, 47% of the increase in people who are in homeless shelters was illegal immigrants. So the big push, the big increase in homelessness, a lot of that wound up being illegal immigrants. Once again, he provided the resources that literally encouraged them to come here, that helped facilitate them to be here. He'll never own it, but yeah, he's the one who provided money and resources and encouraged folks to once again come on into the country illegally. And he spent about $1 billion. And by the way, he spent $1 billion of our money, of our taxpayer money. And then all of that doesn't even include the government services that we are paying for. Right? This is nothing more than this all money that went to the nonprofits that helped them to come here. And then there's the government programs that we spent on once they got here. All of that is Gavin Newsom. He'll never own it, but y'all need to know this so that when the time comes that he is president, you know how important it is to vote no on this guy. Not saying, just saying. No, very much saying. Anyway, moving right along. Oh, here's another one. You remember the shooting that took place in Shreveport, Louisiana? This was an individual, a man who was a convicted felon, not allowed to be in possession of a firearm, somehow got possession of a firearm and killed his 7 children. Yes, killed his own 7 children. Well, everyone wonders, the first thing is you have gun rights folks. Well, if a gun, I'm like, first of all, guns, you use guns, we need to ban all guns. Problem is, number one, dude already wasn't supposed to have a gun. So then how did he get a gun? It obviously has to be lax because you probably don't have background checks or anything like that there in Louisiana. It's too easy in Louisiana to get a gun. No, 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 no. No, what happened was the guy got the gun from another convicted felon. So basically, you had two convicted felons in possession of firearms in a place where it was already illegal to be a felon in possession of a firearm. Anyway, let's read the piece here from over at Bearing Arms, our good friend Mr. Cam Edwards. It says, when news broke about the horrific killings of 8 children in Shreveport, Louisiana last week, gun control advocates were quick to point the finger at Second Amendment organizations and Louisiana's robust protections for the Second Amendment. California Governor Gavin Newsom, for instance, declared the National Rifle Association and their lackeys in Congress are complicit in this madness. Well, now the DOJ says it found the man responsible for arming the killer, who was prohibited under state and federal law from legally possessing a firearm. As it turns out, it wasn't an NRA instructor or a gun store owner named by the Department of Justice. Instead, prosecutors say another convicted felon, unable to legally possess a firearm, owned the gun used in the mass murders. And this is reported from a story. The man now charged in connection with the gun used in the mass killing that left 8 children dead in Louisiana says he realized the weapon was missing over a month ago, but failed to report it, according to a criminal complaint obtained by USA Today. Federal authorities arrested and charged Charles Ford, 56, with being a felon in possession of a firearm and making false statements in connection with the gun that Elkins used to kill 8 children. The U.S. Attorney's Office announced on Tuesday, April 21st. The U.S. Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearm, and Explosive, otherwise known as ATF, conducted a trace on the gun used in the shooting, identified as a .22 caliber Mossberg 715P long rifle, according to the criminal complaint against Ford obtained by USA Today. ATF Special Agent Christina Curtis learned that a woman originally bought the gun in February on February 22nd, 2025, and later gave it to Ford to hold onto while she was in the hospital, the complaint says. During an interview with investigators, the complaint says Ford denied ever having the gun and said he wasn't allowed to have one because he was a convicted felon. During a second interview, Ford admitted to the ATF that the woman had given him the gun while she was in the hospital and that he always kept it under the seat of his truck, the complaint said. Ford told investigators on March 9th he noticed the gun was missing from the truck and that he suspected Elkins had stolen it because he was one of the only people who knew where it was kept, the complaint said. Quote, Ford stated that he confronted Elkins about the weapon being missing, but Elkins became offensive, so he let it go, the complaint says. So it's not that he necessarily was supplying him with the gun so that he could do what he wanted. The truth is, stole the gun from him. But once again, so you had a woman who gave a gun to a convicted felon. You had a convicted felon who was in possession of the firearm. You have a convicted felon who chose not to lock it up, and I don't know what the storage laws are there in Louisiana. I'm assuming they're not that strict. And you have a felon who wasn't supposed to be in possession of a gun, who then stole a gun. I mean, I'm rattling off all of the crimes relating to guns that exist that had been committed, and somehow people think that if we include another gun law, one more gun law, will make all the difference in the world. I'm just not seeing it. I really am not seeing it. I don't know. Maybe y'all got it figured out. Maybe y'all know more than I do. But I'm just not seeing how one more gun law would have made any difference in this particular case. I just see it as being a problem. I don't know. What are your thoughts? Let me know. Let me know in the comment section. Would love to hear what you think about what law could have prevented this from happening. What law that's not already in place and clearly didn't work. What law you think would make a difference? All right, folks, that now brings us to our parting shots. Parting shots are brought to you by Hog Holsters. Just go to hogholsters.com. Use the discount code The Rundown, all caps, no spaces, one word, and get your Hog Holster today on discount. All right, these first two here are going to be, we're going to play a couple of videos here. So we're the first one here. This is in honor of the Southern Poverty Law Center. Y'all going to love this one.
Racism is down, people! Unless we get these hate crimes up, we are out of a job! No more matcha lattes! Is this getting through to you?
If there's not enough racism, what if we made racism?
That's it!
We don't care how you do it. We just need more hate crimes.
Yeah, unfortunately, those of you who, I'm sure you got the gist of what was in the video. If you're just part of our audio podcast, anyway, that was kind of funny. That was definitely funny, and that pretty much is what they did. You know, I'm not going to say that they intended to use the information to gin up racism, or gin up like a fear of white supremacy. Maybe make it seem like there's more white supremacy than there is. I'm just saying I don't know what else they spent the money on because I don't see any data or anything that's come out that would make me believe any different. Which, by the way, probably led to some of the conversation that that you're going to see in some of these in this next video. Once again, I find this one quite hilarious because I honestly believe that there's some people who just their careers depend on on racism and hate being a thing.
Causing most of the deaths within this country.
Or that this person is married to this person and then this person said this.
White men, are you okay? Are you okay? You're sending troops, National Guard to cities. You keep talking.
Okay, for some reason that video did not start at the beginning, and I want to make sure that it does, because otherwise you're gonna be like, well, what the? Anyway, so let me. There we go. That's what happened. Okay, so I didn't have it started all the way back at the beginning. So here we go. Now we're going to hear it all the way from the beginning.
I'm a conservative, but you don't have to be to see the irony in the fact that this person is married to this person and yet this person says this.
Our country should be more fearful of white men across our country because they are actually causing most of the deaths within this country.
Or that this person is married to this person and then this person said this.
White men, are you okay? Are you okay? You're sending troops, National Guard to cities. You keep talking about, oh my gosh, Chicago and black on black crime. I want to know, white men, are you okay? Because that is the real issue here. Because this country keeps waking up to bodies in the pews, blood on the floor, gunfire in public places. And the faces behind the trigger looks the same nearly every single time. This is just the truth. I don't care if you get mad about it.
Or that this person is married to this person and then this person says this.
There's a very big difference between whiteness and national, like your actual culture, right? Whiteness is an imaginary thing. Being German is real. Being Italian is real. Being English. These are rich cultural heritages that are based on values. And
this one's just funny. It's as if all of the people that say the worst things about white men are absolutely in love with one. And maybe, just maybe, they're all puppets for an agenda and they don't actually believe anything that they say. But hey, I'm just a conservative.
So a couple of things to note. So every person that she just talked to, you can probably recognize all of the voices. They're all people married to white men. All claiming that white men are the worst thing that's ever happened to this country and that they're the ones that are destroying the country. Just not saying, just saying. And oh, by the way, the conservative, she happened to be black. So just once again, just wanted to point all that out to you. All right, our next couple are going to be brought to you by the Babylon Bee, fake news that you can trust. And this first one deals with the what's going on, what happened over in Virginia. Too far, gerrymandering Virginia congressional map includes California. And for those of you just listening, it's hilarious because they've got this one thin blue line that's going all the way across the country from Virginia over to California. And then you've got Democrats devastated to learn America less racist than they thought. Because, well, we're not doing the things that the Southern Poverty Law Center is, or the people are not doing the things that the Southern Poverty Law Center accused them of. The fact that Southern Poverty Law Center is spending a lot of time, energy, and effort and money, well, to help them be racist. Anyway. All right, folks, that now brings us to the end of our program. But before we go, we're going to have one more quick shout out to our sponsors. First, we've got Hitman Industries, rifle and pistol caliber barrels available for you to purchase at hitmanindustries.net. The California Republican Assembly, the conscience of the Republican Party, can be found at cragop.org. We've got the best in concealed carry hog holsters on the market at hogholsters.com. That's HAWG holsters.com, helping Americans wear guns. And then finally, we've got the place where you can find all things tactical except the gun. That would be at uscombatgear.com. And with that, today's program is now complete. We will be back tomorrow on Throat Punch Thursday. Till then, y'all have fun, stay safe, and we will see you